tonight we got a doozy for you. Hey, did you know that every hero and every villain has an origin story? Now, if you pay attention to comics, this is a trope. This is something that it's just been. It is what it is, okay? And it's an amazing thing, meaning that as I've talked about in the past with sort of these Jungian archetypes, well, we're regular people, okay? We're not superheroes, okay? Dare we flatter ourselves and, all the rest of that. But as I said there, every superhero and every villain has an origin story. They have an opening. They have something that kind of calls them to a higher duty, whatever the hell that means, right? And to some, it's, being a maniacal troll on the interwebs, right? And kind of taking it back down from the superhero to the actual benign for just a moment here, the regular, the everyday human aspect. Some people are drawn to theology. Some people are drawn to, archaeology. Some people are drawn to just the secrets of the universe themselves and philosophy and just all kinds of whether it's going to be channeling or Edgar Cayce or so many ways to consider the mysteries of the cosmos, right? And so to me, the origin story is really the basis of let's say the core of an identity, where this all begins, where this journey begins. And specifically, there's something that I was thinking about today, and it's funny how this comes across, right? The inspiration just comes out of wild places sometimes. And we'll back up to that for just a moment. And I was in just a few spare minutes of time, and I was down in Southwest Vegas, and there's a fantastic little store down there, a gaming store. You guys remember those from the 80s? If you guys were ever, into the old comic book stores, something to that effect. And they actually had these games inside of them. It wasn't just, in the old days, it was sort of these hybrid stores. They were comic book stores, and they had sort of, a little bit of some crossover Dungeons and Dragons stuff. And, it was kind of like that. You could buy your dice and, very, very 1980s. Shout out to the 80s and the Robert there when we were talking waterbeds a little bit last night with the 80s, right? And so the weird thing is if you ever were in a comic book store in the 80s, it was sort of that hybrid experience because they hadn't really come to, Magic the Gathering or Pokemon cards or, stuff like this. None of that stuff had actually really been invented yet. It was still sort of just comics and, remember they still they sold baseball cards in there and some other just weird stuff. It was like this weird just mixture of a bunch of things, right? It was kind of like the freaks hangout, meaning that you couldn't just find this stuff at a regular store. They had to have their own little kind of freak store, and I mean that in a nice way because I'm a freak too, right? I'm a weirdo, and so I was in one of those places today, and it's come a long way. They've got all those books, there's no baseball cards. There is sort of the Magic the Gathering stuff. There's all kinds of amazing things in this store, right? And I just kind of sidle over to the role playing game section, and I'm like, oh yeah, check this out. This is pretty cool. I start thumbing through some books over there, putting my dirty mitts on these glossy new shiny books that are on the shelf, which you probably shouldn't do. Wash your hands or whatever, right? I mean, I'm not like a disgusting, grotesque, slimy monster or anything, but out there working in the day or whatever, I was very conscious of my kind of grubby hands on these shiny new books, right? I was like, ooh, okay, all right, this is cool. So anyway, back to how it leads us to tonight in this idea. So I'm kind of looking through, just cruising through the role-playing game section. As you know, I've, in the old days, the 80s, I did play a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons, and it was fun as hell because it was, kind of the cutting edge of what comes next back then. It was something that, they were doing specials on 60 Minutes about how it was going to, Dungeons and Dragons was going to steal your children and things like this, right? It was very edgy. It was very, right? Very, very, that bit was like, oh, don't play Dungeons and Dragons or you might summon the devil, right? Which of course is, a little bit silly, but that's the type of stuff that the satanic panic of the 80s, right? So I'm in the store and I grab this one book and wouldn't you know it, I'm drawn to a particular actual game reference, and it's from you got it. It would be from Chaosium, is the actual inventor of this game, and the game is called Call of Cthulhu. And of course, right? And I'm eyeballing this book. It's like, I don't know, $50 now. They're like $45 now for these books, and it's this one, the Investigator Handbook. Okay, and I've got. Let's see, did I pull it up? There we go. Let's do that. Let's just do the quick view. I think we can. Yeah. There we go. The Investigator Handbook. There you go. It is $45 online now, which, in the old days, they used to be quite a bit less than that. You could probably get these for $20 or whatever. But anyway, so the idea here is, and where this starts to get wild is, I'm like, okay, just kind of looking at it, and I'm like, Investigator Handbook. Like, what is that? That's pretty cool. But basically, it's like the player's handbook, okay, of the Dungeons and Dragons style. Trust me, this is going somewhere. And so I flipped the book over, and there's on the very back, there's this actual little thing. I'm going to read the blurb here. Let's see. 1 second here. I don't know how this is going to pop up. Give me just a sec. Let me put it in the thing. Can I maybe drop it there? Geez, I don't know. I'll drop it in the Discord and then pop it over. But so anyway, so I flipped the book over, and I'm just kind of looking at some of the stuff, and I was like, this is super cool, right? It's like the Investigator's Handbook meeting something like an investigator of esoteric secrets, an investigator of the paranormal, investigator of, right, all of these things that we're always talking about sort of on Troubled Minds. And then back to the origin story, right, of the superheroes, as I'm calling these. And here you go. I got it. I'm putting it up on the thing. So, okay, so check this out. And this is it. So I'm going to read this straight from the back of this book. I flipped this book over today, and it says this. Call of Cthulhu, Investigator Handbook. Will you stand against the horrors of the night? Whether learned professor, nosy journalist, or hard-hitting detective, investigators need all the help they can get. Let this book be your guide. The Investigator Handbook is an essential player's aid for the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. Written for those who will be playing the roles of investigators, the Investigator Handbook contains expanded rules for creating player characters, a wealth of over 100 occupations and skill descriptions, and guidance on getting the most from the game. What's more, there are a range of organizations for your investigator to belong to, detailed information about the classic 1920s setting, equipment and weapons for both the 1920s and modern day. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. So the best part is the top part, okay? Because it's basically like, wait, now look, back to the superhero and the origin story, okay? Is that everything starts somewhere. And even with an inkling of inspiration, and I'll tell you the Michael Strange origin story in a moment. And this is exactly why I'm doing this, because I think that each of us has a story in regard to what this means, what it means to be, let's say, a seeker. And some people use the term truth seeker. I don't like that. Because I think you're gonna laugh at me. I think the term truth is too polarizing, right? Because everybody's so mad, they're always fighting over the truth, right? So I think if you defer that truth a little bit and kind of call yourself a seeker instead, a seeker of something, right? It doesn't necessarily mean what it is. It just means a seeker of something more, right? But anyway, just to kind of throw that out there isn't it funny when you say the truth is polarizing? But anyway, so there is an origin story to Michael Strange, and I will tell that very briefly. But basically, the premise tonight is that the origin story of, as I'm calling this tonight, the Enigma detective, which of course is all of us. And in the intro of the show, you guys hear, I say you're here for a reason. And that still resonates. You are here for a reason. Maybe you've seen something. Maybe something led you here. Maybe, whatever it was, something out there has sort of led you to a space where you expect or want to find more from, let's say, the universe itself, the cosmos itself, the nature of reality itself. And so I want to know about those origin stories tonight, if you got them. And there we go. So just 1 sec. We're going to get a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back with more Troubled Minds coming up. But that's what's up. We're talking the Investigator Archetype, Enigma detectives, and of course embracing complexity, which all fits into tonight's convo. Be right back. More Troubled Minds coming up. 1 minute, a word from our sponsor. Don't go anywhere. Feeling stressed? Overwhelmed? In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to get swept away by our emotions. Take a breath and find your inner strength with the Stoic Minute.
You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength.
The ancient Stoic philosophers understood that we can't control everything in life, but we can control how we react.
The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts.
Focus on what you can influence. Cultivate a positive mindset and let go of what you can't change. Find your inner strength. Live each day with courage, wisdom, justice, and moderation. Embrace the Stoic virtues and find peace within. The Stoic Minute, brought to you by Jack in Oregon. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Let's continue, shall we? We're talking this investigator archetype. Now, you know me, I like to make up terms, and I think it's a good thing because specifically I think the old paradigms need not always stick, meaning that, just because you were told something, specifically, let's say this. We were taught about the five senses, okay? And I know it is a sort of an elementary school boil down of what it means to be human and sort of the five senses, right? The hearing, smelling, sense of touch, taste, our vision, all the rest of that, right? And so it's very, very basic, okay? But I think this is sort of the cursory level of reality that we're all taught. It's because, of course, we have to be good citizens of the world and, go to work and, show up on time and, be productive members of society. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, okay? Because there does need to be some sort of actual semblance of normalcy for us to even operate together, or else we'll be so fractured that we're just, a bunch of Fraggle Rock Muppets freaking out like it is the Muppet Show, or backstage behind the Muppet Show before it even starts, like that type of thing, which I've seen some workplaces that are kind of like that too. Shout out, you guys know who you are. But anyway, so back, and Ray says, true, I'm here for a reason. Mike still owes me $30. Hey, come on, man. Stop it. Anyway, that was funny. But okay, so the bizarre part about all this is that back to the origin story. Okay, back to the origin story of all of us. And again, let's talk about Derek for a second, the Night Stalker, just for a moment. Imagine him, the mild-mannered grocer by night and the dreamer by day, like this type of stuff, right? And again, a shout out to the Night Stalker out there, always peeling out some time for us. I appreciate it very much. Great call last night as well. And so that type of thing. It's sort of like we have the Clark Kent and the Superman aspects of ourselves that are operating simultaneously all the time. Me, mild-mannered, driver by day. By night, I am the mighty Michael Strange, the master of the mysterious, right? And so this is the type of stuff that I think that we're, we are who we are in terms of what it is to be, let's say, our daily existence to survive in the world. But then there's also sort of this larger aspect of what it means to be us, that given your druthers and you didn't have to pay bills, or you didn't have to spend time grinding to put food on the table or put a roof over your head, things like this, you would maybe be like I'm trying to do, learn hieroglyphics, or right, like maybe start reading ancient Sumerian tablets and trying to figure some of this stuff out, or who knows, maybe you want to be an actual rocket scientist and you're maybe delving into advanced propulsion techniques, and who knows? And this is exactly really the part of the equation where all this turns on its head, because look, we are who we are on the most base level, but I think on a larger level, and in the sense of what we're talking about tonight, and not just tonight, this is like just a broad spectrum of what Troubled Minds has been since we began, is just the idea of us kind of expecting more from the cosmos, okay? But more than that all, right? You're born, you work, you pay taxes, you die, which is, again, it's bleak, it's sad, and it's not reality. It's not. It just isn't. And I think that's exactly what we're dealing with, sort of that rejection of that base reality, because it is not enough. It is sort of an obfuscation of something quite a bit larger. And wherever you find that inspiration is fine. Like I said, I'm not the arbiter of that truth, and that's that type of stuff. All the different reasons I think are valid and legitimate, as long as you're not trying to be some cosmic psychopath, right? Take over the world or take over the cosmos like Thanos or something, right? Not like that, okay? But I mean, you get what I'm saying. So anyway, back to the story I was about to tell. So the Michael Strange origin story is when I was young, let's say 10, 12, I'm not sure where the book came from, to be honest, but this beautiful blue book showed up. And I've told this story once or twice before on the show. So if you've heard this, like I said, bear with me as we repeat these stories as we get old, but I don't tell these stories a lot. So there's this beautiful blue book shows up on our coffee table, right? And this is the 80s, of course, mid 80s, something like this. And it's not just your average run-of-the-mill book. It was like a what was it? A Reader's Digest, Mysteries of the Unexplained style. Okay, something like this. And so you open it, you flip through. It's got all the Fortean stuff. It's got the the meat falling from the sky. It's got the UFO stuff in there, of course. It's got ghosts and goblins and the enigma of the universe, basically, all kind of laid out in this kind of book. describing things and with some, some illustrations and some, actual possible real photographs of UFO sightings or even, apparitions, this type of thing, right? Which is cool. I mean, it's cool. It was super cool then, right? Kind of always resonated with me and stuck. And then, of course, later on, you get a little bit older, and then you start listening to things like Art Bell, right? You're an insomniac. You're up late at night. You just can't, for whatever reason, you're just kind of stuck. And you're trying to find something to calm the racing mind. And, well, you find, Art Bell by Dark of Night, and you turn this on, and you're listening to Old School Coast, and you're like, wow, okay, like that. A lot of this might be nonsense, but there might be something here, right? And it kind of draws your mind, and literally that's why I'm here tonight. That's why I'm here doing this show over the past several years. That's why, like I said, it draws you into these things, and I got to wonder if there's sort of a calling to this, right? Sort of an awakening of sorts that is well, I don't know. So how do you quantify it? And look, it's not beyond me that it's just the possible musings of an overactive imagination, this type of thing, this investigator archetype as I'm describing this tonight. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's something completely different. Maybe it's sort of an awakening that we're always supposed to achieve that's sort of been suppressed back to the Michael Strange control mechanisms I'm always talking about. And maybe we're supposed to break through that mundane level of reality. And this is where we're supposed to be. Maybe this is the operating aspect of what it means to be human, is actually searching the cosmos, at least with our brains, our minds, our dreams, this type of stuff, and considering what might be around us, okay? Wild stuff. And I don't know. So the question for tonight, of course, and there's going to be many because, well, this is Troubled Minds after all, is this. Why are you here? What is your origin story? Like I said, mild-mannered driver by day, the master of the mysterious by night. Why are you here? And I mean that in the nicest way. I'm not trying to run you off. I'm eternally grateful for each and every one of you being here, as I always say, and that's the truth. But it seems like there's something out there that draws us further and further in. And that's exactly the idea tonight, this investigator archetype. And of course, I'm calling it the Enigma detective because it seems like that's exactly what this is. You start to sniff out that something isn't quite right with the nature of reality. You start to sniff out that, well, it seems like all the rules they've put in place are kind of clown world, right? This type of thing, very conspiratorial. I don't know. Is it, is it sort of we've been told it's sort of the basis of an antisocial personality. It's paranoia. It's, so many other things, but I'm not so sure it's those things. I think it's something else entirely, and I can't quite put my finger on exactly what it is. But back to this Call of Cthulhu actual role-playing game, the Investigator Handbook. That's what we all are. We're actually investigators in the cosmos itself, seeking some new layer of truth, which seems to be eluding us for one reason or another. And notice I didn't say the truth because I think that's a slippery fish, as I always say. And as polarizing as truth is or has become, then we have, well, a problem, don't we? We have a problem. We have literally a battle for the actual nature of reality itself and what it means to be humans. And back to Alex Jones for a moment, he said this 25 years ago, right? How long has he been doing InfoWars? I used to chuckle when I saw the InfoWars bumper stickers. I was like, InfoWars. Yeah, right. Like that's really happening. But let me tell you what, at least in that regard, the InfoWar, Alex Jones was right. And he was very, very heavily participating in that, of course. He still is. But I think this is exactly what we're dealing with. I think it is a calling of some sort. And I don't know what it is. And I don't want to, put some sort of religious connotation to this, because I don't think it's that at all. I think it's something quite a bit, let's say, you can't say larger than religious, can you? I mean, then you sound like a blasphemous idiot. Well, I'll just say it. I'll just sound like a blasphemous idiot. I think this is larger than religion. I think this is larger than these concepts of, these old archetypes and these old ideas of pantheons and gods and goddesses and all the rest. I think it's quite a bit larger. And of course, even, dare I put more toes in the ocean of blasphemy, maybe even larger than our modern day dogmas. And this is exactly the point. To consider these ideas, whatever this is, whatever reality ends up being in the end, because of course there's always an end to the story, am I right? Well, Let's start with the beginning of the story. So what I want to know tonight is what got you into this stuff? Why do you think there is some sort of calling, or is there not? Am I dreaming here? Am I tripping? And what about this Enigma detective and this idea of the investigator archetype? Do you think there's something here? That's where we start. That's what's on my mind tonight. I don't know. I don't know the answer to those questions, of course, because I am the questions guy, not really the answers guy. But that puts us about where we need to be. And first, before we take a break, the story. Now, there's an individual by the name of Martin. And I made that up, but I mean, there's a Martin out there, but I made up this name Martin because I don't know any Martins, and I don't think there's any Martins in the chat. I didn't want to put this on somebody. Here we go. So, quick story. Martin wasn't looking for the extraordinary. He was a history buff, fascinated by artifacts and the whispers they carried from long forgotten eras. There was a comfortable predictability to his life. His modest apartment, his job cataloging museum acquisitions. How sweet would that be, actually? The hushed hum of the reading rooms he frequented in his spare time. Yet beneath the surface routine, a subtle shift was happening. It began as a persistent tingle at the base of his skull, a sense that something was amiss in the seemingly mundane world around him. Ordinary objects seemed charged with strange energy. A chipped ceramic bowl unearthed at a flea market, an antique coin with an indecipherable inscription. Martin dismissed it as sleep deprivation at first, a side effect of nights pored over obscure historical texts. But then the dreams came. Vivid dreams filled with cryptic symbols he didn't recognize, and whispers in a language he couldn't understand, but somehow yearned to comprehend. He'd jolt awake, heart pounding, with the haunting remnants of those dreams clinging to him, the feeling of being watched, refusing to fade. Logic and reason, his usual tools, had no power against this growing certainty that there was something beyond the veil of his reality, just out of reach. And growling might work in that aspect as well, because, yeah. Anyway, so that's where I'm at tonight. We're talking origin stories, and that's Martin's origin story, which is, of course, is a fictional character, but it doesn't much matter, does it? Because when we're talking about this calling, whatever this happens to be, the question becomes, is it real? Or is this, again, overactive imagination? Why are you here? Why are you drawn to esoteric topics like we talk about on Troubled Minds? I know why I am. Why are you? And do you think everybody has this yearning somewhere within them to actually scratch the itch of the cosmos itself? There you go. Puts us where we need to be. Let's push this button right there. And of course, love to hear your thoughts. This is a conversation. I'm not the answers guy, I'm the questions guy, and I'd love to hear your origin story. What got you interested into this? Not only that, do you think it is some sort of calling, some sort of actual larger question that we do not know the answer to, and it is an awakening process? Every hero has an origin story, and so what actually brought you to these ideas? And I fibbed a little bit. I skipped somebody. Talking about that blue book on the coffee table, the Time Life or whatever that was, the Reader's Digest with all the Fortean stuff when I was young, was part of it. Art Bell was also a part of it. But you know what? I missed one. Dr. Gene Scott. You guys know who that dude is? Go look up some Dr. Gene Scott. It's going to blow your mind. He was one of those guys, sort of a... I don't know. I'm sure he's probably polarizing because I'm not as well read biblically as I should be. And so, but he was always endlessly entertaining to me. And so, that sort of young, let's say late teen or early 20s, Michael Strange, couldn't sleep. It's 2 a.m. You got to be up. Like I used to work at like 6 a.m. all the time. And it was brutal, but I'm a night owl. And so even though I was exhausted, I just couldn't sleep. My mind was always racing and wandering and wondering and all the rest of it, right? And I just wish I didn't have to be up in, 3 hours, 3.5 hours or whatever. But then you still can't go to sleep. So you turn the TV on, and back then, you didn't have, 10,000 channels and nothing to watch. You had 12 or 15 or 18, you know what I mean? The technology was there, but not everybody had, 10,000 channels. But of course, always at 2 a.m., I could find Dr. Gene Scott waxing poetically about wild biblical stuff. And not only that, he wasn't just sort of a preacher. He was a scholar, a PhD, and he talked about wild things with regard to sort of biblical scripture, and including UFOs and things. He would kind of weave that type of stuff in. And I was like, damn, this guy's out there, right? That the young me was like, damn. And again, if you've never heard of him, go check it out. He does still have a website up. His widow, Pastor Melissa Scott is actually took up his church and all the rest, and the scandals and all the whatever. Like that part was let's say less interesting. I think only because she's less entertaining, but she's still running the website and still doing the Doom preacher style stuff. But go check it out. Dr. Gene Scott is the guy's name, and he was part of that bridge of these ideas that kind of stick in my head. You listen to these guys, as you're falling asleep, and who knows? Maybe that's part of the Michael Strange origin story that I've never told. But Dr. Gene Scott's a wild one. Definitely go check that out. So anyway, I'd like to know your actual origin story as this investigator archetype. When did you start to become an Enigma detective, and when did you start to realize the reality we live in is not as advertised? 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show just like this. Hang tight, Matthew. Algo was first. Let's go to Mike in Colorado. What's up, my man? Algorithm, how are you tonight? You're on Troubled Minds. Go right ahead, sir.
I'm doing well. Thank you, Mr. Strange. How are you?
I'm doing well. Well as well. Glad to have you tonight. And do you have an origin story, my friend? What's on your mind? Go right ahead.
I've been thinking about this, pardon me, when you mentioned that. And I do have an origin story that I think it probably fits a lot of people who not only follow you, but do the same kind of thing. When I was a little child, I took apart the telephone. And the telephone was back then hardwired to the wall. You couldn't even plug it in. It was in my grandma's house. And so I was just curious by nature, and I think we all are. And then life comes and you get smashed down and you're told that was a dream, and you're told that no, you didn't really leave your body and those kind of things. And so we suppress it. But I think what's more important than my personal origin story is the common thing that I know from meeting a lot of people who follow you and hang around me is, for one, there's above average intelligence that connects all these people. They generally are less fearful than the average masses. They don't just go with the flow, but there's almost always something that's a trigger. Like in the superhero stories, there's always the event that there's one trigger thing that happens. And for me personally, happened several times. When I was a mid-teenager, I had an epiphany, and I'm like, oh my God, all these people are doing this wrong. Something's really messed up here. And then life got busy, and then I went back to things. And then after, 2008, roughly, I bumped into David Icke talking about Barack Obama and how he's not really what people think he is. And that it kept me on the current path that I'm still on. So I don't know that, for me, my particular ideas and origin story isn't that interesting, but the fact that we all have the same things in common, I think it's built into us before we get here.
Yeah.
I think if we're willing to explore those things with courage, and basically you just want to find out what's going on, right?
Yeah, it is, as I described, that cosmic itch a little bit. It's like there's something that's really kind of in the periphery of existence, and we just... I can speak for myself. I don't want to speak for you or anybody else, but it does feel like there's just something that's so tantalizingly close to answers, but the answers are still elusive. It's like we're kind of just barely able to kind of touch the surface of something, and it comes and goes even, and we're toes in the ocean, as I always say. And it feels like that. It feels like that to me. But what that means, I don't really know. As back to Gene Scott and the rest of that bizarre stuff. Maybe it is passing on the torch aspect. And I do like how you described it as sort of an attribute. You're like, well, intelligence and this type of thing, and so maybe it is sort of like a D&D character role where we get like the certain stats, like a intelligence score above 12 and like a wisdom score above 10 or something, right? And then suddenly we're like the warrior monks of the future. So you know what I mean? Something like that. That kind of makes some sense, at least, since we're talking role-playing games a little bit tonight. But that's the whole point of this. I think there is for sure something here, but it is a certain crowd for sure. There's sort of a fracturing of reality to something quite a bit different, and that's why I think, as always, I look at it's eternally fascinating to me. These larger concepts brings me back every single night, even if I never have a prayer of knowing what the answers are, and I'm just saying that because I'm above my pay grade and all that. But it doesn't matter. Like I kind of, the answer might disappoint me. Right. So maybe I'm okay. Just seeking the questions and all the rest of it. But yeah, amazing stuff. What else you got? Go right ahead.
The quest is the enjoyable part, for sure. When we find the answers, we don't often like them, and they're more pedestrian than I think we think they're going to be. At least for me, I've expected some of these answers to these questions of why the systems work the way they do to be, like dark forces behind the veil, and it turns out they're just greedy people often. So I don't know, it's sad, but that's the reality that I find myself looking at. And as I leave, and thank you for having me on, but as I leave this, I do want to make a special shout out to Rumble, because I know when you first kind of got over to Rumble, it was you and me talking to each other. And now Rumble is the place to be. If you're listening on any of the platforms live and you like to chat, make yourself a Rumble account or a Rockfin account, get over there, then meet all these great people who are in the same boat as you, looking for answers. You're going to find camaraderie and friendship and a lot of good things. So that's all I got, my friend.
Well said. I appreciate it very much. Thanks for the call. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being you. And we'll talk to you soon. Have a great night. That's Mike in Colorado. You know him, you love him. Algorithm. You can find him on Rumble as well. Just search it that way. Of course, the link's going to be in the description down below. troubledminds.org/friends. It says follow Algorithm here. Please do that. He's doing great work over there on his channel as well when he's streaming. And it is, similar style conversations, just wondering about truth and that slippery, elusive, whatever that truth-ish means and is to us, each as individuals. He does do call-ins sometimes, and he's got regularly shout out Danny in the chat there. Smurfer Girl, I see you in the chat as well. What's up? How are you? Welcome back to the joint. Glad to see you down there in the chat. And great people doing great things out there is exactly the point of this. And notice that as I've always said on this show, and why I think that the most important part is just regular people talking to each other, is because you get a lot of sort of that guru aspect of, you get a big YouTube channel, or you get a celebrity and things like this, and people just believe the things these guys say because, for what reason? It never made sense to me that I should live my life according to what Brad Pitt might have said once. It's just like, really, bruh? Like, that's just dumb. That's just dumb. Like, no offense. I mean, I'm not going after Brad Pitt, but you know what I mean? Like, that type of sort of celebrity aspect kind of swanging its way to our psyche and trying to make us believe that we need to be like that is absurd. Like, it is clown world through and through. So I don't know. That's always been the beauty of these conversations is, like I've always said, you don't have to be Linda Moulton Howe or Richard Dolan, have a UFO blog or anything else. You just have to be you. And you're a human too. This is your world too. And your take qualifies as part of these larger conversations also. So thanks for the call, Algo. Appreciate it very much. We're talking about the Investigator archetype tonight. And again, I'm calling this the Enigma detective and embracing complexity. I think maybe Algo's onto something there in terms of, let's say, maybe, sort of that, as I elaborated a little bit, the Dungeons and Dragons dice roll, right? When you're rolling up your character, which of course would be sort of, a genetic, the genetic lottery, right? As we know, sometimes you can win the genetic lottery and you end up, I don't know, like a kid of somebody super rich. But is that really like winning the genetic lottery? I'm not really sure, right? But I've heard it called that in the past. So, as always, money isn't everything and all the rest of that. And all those poor individuals, the kids end up with destroyed lives anyway because they sort of lack purpose because they don't, right? They could have everything they need all the time. I can't imagine what that would be like. No actual challenge to life itself. But anyway, so wild stuff there. But in a larger sense, rolling our characters, and maybe we all have a wisdom score of 10 and an intelligence score of 12. And, it's, again, from a Dungeons and Dragons perspective, and maybe we have a little bit of a streak of madness in us too, a little bit of chaotic neutral in terms of alignment. I don't really know. But how does this quantify? What is your origin story, and why are you here? Why do you like to think about these ideas? And have you ever heard of Dr. Gene Scott? just as I throw that out there, because that wild stuff, if you guys never heard of that guy.